think there's a danger of jumping in too soon with these things, because as soon as you jump in, you have to maintain it. So if you jump into a new technology, you've got to make sure that you've got the customer service element backed up. You've got to ensure that you've got the content continuously relevant and coming on board. You don't want to go into something and then do it half-assed, or you're not set up to deal with it.
So on this version of the CheckoutScout Tent, I am joined by Louisa Nicholls, who recently left John Lewis, where she covered a range of marketing and e-commerce roles, and her new job is to be Chief Customer Officer of the British retailer M&Co. Louisa, thanks for coming into our little tent, which isn't really a tent because we're at a conference, but thanks anyway.
It's a marquee.
The marquee,
I know,
yes.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much indeed. So, you recently left John Lewis. Tell us a little bit about the role that you held there.
Yeah, so I'm in a number of roles over the year, but majority of my time has been spent in the digital ecosystem somewhere. So I've done online trading, I've done the marketing space with digital and social, and I led the digital and social team through COVID. So safe to say there was no furloughing on our side at all. And then more recently, I've been leading the wider marketing team, so the brand, advertising, go-to-market, the marketing planning elements of it.
When you were at John Lewis, what was the sort of market size that you were responsible for?
So online, it's a significant proportion of sales. So pre-COVID, it was between 50 and 60%, and post-COVID, you're nudging at 70% in some of the assortments. And remember, John Lewis is everything from furniture through to Christmas to gifting to a huge range of spectrum of assortments. But on average, about £2.4 billion of sales is taken online. So it is a big player in the online market. But it entered the market very early on. We bought buy.com in 2001, and so it's very mature in the e-com space. So
just specifically think about e-commerce, what were some of the challenges that you had under your tenure, and how did you tackle them?
I think it's like with any business, and especially an e-com business, once you get to that maturity phase, it's really getting under the skin of what's going to continue to move the dial. So a lot of e-commerce retailers saw a huge shift in percentage of sales when they started launching click and collect, and certainly at John Lewis, I think it was around 2008 if my memory serves me correctly, but that saw a massive step change in online sales, that convenience piece, especially using Waitrose as well in that space. So it's that constant innovation and constant, am I backing the right thing, and making sure that you're staying ahead of the market. And during my tenure, we had Black Friday that came on the scene, and we had to re-platform quite quickly because the amount of traffic that was being generated during that period of time was sending websites into a tailspin, and most people were crashing left, right, and centre. So there's always something that comes in from the external market. The other one was Apple releasing iPads, and suddenly overnight people were shopping on a tool that no retailer had optimised their website for. And so thinking about that, and then that kind of leaves, and mobile phones get bigger and the screens get bigger, and so people are shopping less on iPads, and so it's constantly evolving. But the importance of making sure that your website is responsive, so it can respond to any type of size of device that it's on, is so important. And then the rise of app. I think a lot of people are still finding their feet with app randomly, and also finding out or discovering what the purpose of the app is, and every retailer is different. If you look at Amazon, the majority of sales from Amazon actually goes through their app. That's very unique to Amazon. A lot of other retailers aren't quite there with that, but you've got to have a purpose. Customers have to have a reason for downloading something, and so thinking about that value exchange and that reason for doing something is always key and top of mind.
Yeah, and just exploring that a little bit with new technologies and new arrivals. So take something like TikTok or shoppable video. How do you plan for those, or do you wait to see what the market does and then react?
It's a bit of both. I think there's a danger of jumping in too soon with these things, because as soon as you jump in, you have to maintain it. So if you jump into a new technology, you've got to make sure that you've got the customer service element backed up. You've got to ensure that you've got the content continuously relevant and coming on board. You don't want to go into something and then do it half-assed or you're not set up to deal with it, because it comes with the complexities, the kind of the off-site piece, the element of customer service and post-purchase communication and everything else. It's not just a case of filming someone doing a video on TikTok and uploading it. It's all the things that come, the supporting network that comes about with things like that. Everything from setting up PR to make sure that, if there is anything that is an issue, they're on it. Customer services teams, customers more and more use the social channels to air their frustrations. So one of the worst things you can do, I think, is in any company is not respond to those complaints. And they'll escalate very quickly. So you've got to make sure you've got that infrastructure, I think.
So if you go into it, you've got to be ready, and
you do. And also you've got to go into it if it's relevant to your customer base. If it's not, if your customers aren't using those channels, then focus your energy on something that's going to turn the dial within that customer space. But I think as the more adoption around social media grows, the less it's about ages. So many people at all ages are now have adopted social media. That's going to be quite an interesting one to watch with whatever is new coming out and responding to that.
And switching a little bit to your new focus as Chief Customer Officer at M&Co, what do you think are the challenges for that sector of the retail market? Obviously a lot smaller than John Lewis, but a brand that people have heard of. What sort of issues are you going to be looking at there?
I think it's the online offline space. So M&Co have a brilliant branch portfolio. They're really hot on localization and community, and in fact that's what some of the big retailers are looking at focusing on now. It's how you bring that loyal customer base online and how you go about doing that. So really understanding your target customer, understanding what drives them, and how you can then insert the online space into their world rather than trying to bring them into the online world is going to be key. So a lot of it, I haven't started yet, but a lot of it will be me understanding the customer, getting into the data, seeing where the brand is with things.
So just coming to the end of our little chat then, so tell me about something else that's out there that you use or admire, an e-com retailer that you would love to have worked for or even started. What's out there that you really like?
Well, I would love to be Jeff Bezos, but no, I wouldn't actually. I would love his money. I'd love his money. One of the kind of the e-com kind of growth areas, I think, is in fitness and well-being, and what really resonates with me is the story of Gymshark and how that was founded. And that was founded by a chap his name's Ben Francis, and he was at university, and he was selling supplements, drop shipping, and he was working in Pizza Hut, and he realised actually there was an opportunity to grow a business online around really more value players in the health and fitness space, but also making his own product and then growing it from there. So, from the age of 19, he's really doubled down, focused, and he's now grown a business that's £10 billion, one of the biggest unicorns in the UK. And it's phenomenal, and it just goes from strength to strength. But what I really like about his story as well is that he realised very early on that even though he was CEO, he didn't have all the tools in his toolkit to be able to do that job, and so he took himself away, let someone else that was more seasoned to go in and do it, and went away and learnt it. And I think that really demonstrates a really strong leader, that he knows his weaknesses and he can go away and develop those.
Are there any sort of lighter-hearted moments you've had from your career at John Lewis that you care to share?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Working for John Lewis, as soon as you say John Lewis, the majority of customers or majority of people will say, "Oh, I love John Lewis. I used to shop there when I was a kid with my mum. I used to get my school uniform there." But the other thing they do, and I think it's because we cover such a huge amount of the population in the UK, and it's such a popular brand, is they forget how big it is, and they'll often tell me their problems with the delivery they might have had. I'll go round to see my parents, and one of the neighbours will come round and they'll say, "Oh, I ordered, I don't know, a football for my son's Christmas present. It hasn't delivered. Can you find out what's wrong with it, where it is?" And you kind of think, "Oh, it's quite a big business." Yeah. But people feel that they own a part of it almost. It's funny. It's in the British psyche. But yeah, I get a lot of delivery questions.
I suppose it's better with people when you say to people where you work for and they go, "Who?"
Well, yes,
so, yeah,
exactly.
You've got that going for you. But listen, on that note, it's been brilliant to chat, Louisa Nicholls. Thank you very much indeed for your time in the tent.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.